Mike. Here with me today is Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Hello.
How are you, Mr. Brett?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
So last week I was flying solo, and I had mentioned that you were on assignment, and I didn't tell you that I was going to ask you this question, so I realize that I'm putting you on the spot. But did you want to tell people where you were last week?
Yeah, last week I was flying to Tucson. You were flying solo. I was flying to Tucson. Dr. Kathy Maupin and I went to a medical convention, the Age Management Medicine Convention that we attend every year. And we were there to learn more about hormone therapy treatments that she specializes in. And we were marketing our new book, our second book, that'll be published in January.
So we have actually discussed this, that we want to actually do an entire show, if not a series of shows, on what you and Dr. Maupin do, because it is a big deal and it is the future of medicine as we know it as the population ages. And she's really been on the cutting edge. You guys have one book out already that
we have a book out called The Secret Female Hormone. It's available on Amazon or through Dr. Maupin's offices. And we have 424 episodes of a podcast that we've been doing that's available on iTunes or at her website, which is biobalancehealth.com.
Which we are in no way suggesting should compete with Psych with Mike, but actually you guys do a great job. I've seen many of your episodes. You even did some when you guys were in Europe.
Yeah, we did in Mexico. Awesome. We've done when we travel to market our book or whatever we're doing, we also try to continue our weekly podcast filming.
And you guys have been doing this for a while, obviously, to have that kind of a library. Kathy has been on the cutting edge of this for a long time. And as we said, eventually we want to definitely do a program, if not a series of programs, on specifically that subject, because it is important information to put out there. But today we were going to actually talk about the holidays are coming up. So this is November. I think today is the 9th that we are recording this. And people are starting to think about Thanksgiving. They're starting to think about Christmas, the holiday season. And some people are thinking about that with trepidation and dread.
And they always do. And, the holidays the holiday season is a fantasy that we've been marketed all this century through the media that's been available to us, radio and movies, books, cartoons, whatever. But I think it's always been a difficult issue for people. And especially, I don't know if it's where you want to go with this discussion, but after 35 years of therapy, what I would say is people that have trauma histories, physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, who still are hungry for a connection to a family, the idealized family that the market depicts in the videos and the ads that you see all the time on television. We all want that, and very few of us have it. And so those of us that have been damaged in our youth or earlier life, who still try to stay connected to a family, have to gird our loins. We have to get ourselves ready to go into the danger zone, because we inevitably come home re-wounded and re-damaged if we haven't learned how to avoid that.
And this was actually not where I had originally envisioned us going with this conversation, but you're bringing something up that actually hits really close to home for me, and I wanted to get your take on this. So my wife and daughter watch the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's good
all the time.
Feel
right?
Good. Yeah,
and even in July, like they do a whole Christmas in July thing where they televise a lot of their Christmas stories, and they are absolutely riveted.
And they get to resell a lot of their Christmas products and cards and things. I mean, there's a commercial venture in operation there, as well as an emotional manipulation.
Obviously, it is for them all commercial. I would assume nothing less, but what this actually triggers in me is a wonderment why it is obviously very commercial, but why do you think the media does that? Why would they promote an idea that they themselves know is ridiculous and unachievable?
I think they have also drunk the Kool-Aid. I think they buy into the cultural myth that we all aspire to have of the wonderful family coming together on a snowy evening around a table with a fireplace in the background, and happy people loving one another and having a tremendous meal and opening. I mean, it's just quiet music in the background, and it's an awesome picture.
And I guess actually I'm saying,
It's
why
not
would the
reality.
media, right? Why would the media do this? But I mean, I guess the media's been doing this for time in memoriam ever since the media started.
Right.
And so, do you think that is there some Jungian archetype in us that craves the idea of this perfect holiday season, or is it purely something that is socially acculturated?
Wow. I've been in some other cultures at the holiday times, and they laugh about how Americans are so focused on certain elements of a holiday. I mean, they have holidays and they have family get-togethers. I'm thinking particularly, I spent a number of Thanksgiving or Christmas times in Europe, in France. And the French people that I know all get together for family events, and they all have big meals, and they have a reasonably good time, even with the family outcast being welcome to show up. The drunks, the angry people, the old people that nobody can stand, they get them, and they get them there to those things. And there doesn't seem to be the negative anticipation, and there doesn't seem to be the negative aftermath when the event's over. It's like dinner, you clean up and you go home and it's done. But in America, we agonize for some considerable time ahead of time to prepare ourselves to go in harm's way, or to attack ourselves for not being so positive about our grandmother or our mother-in-law or our son or whoever it might be that we're going to have to be around that we don't get along with. So it must be our fault. And we guilt or shame ourselves, and we prepare ourselves in one of two ways, at least in my experience of counseling a lot of people through the years over these issues. Some people are what I would call causist. They want to go to the family and force the family to face the fact that Uncle Tom sexually abused me. Mm-hmm. And I want everybody at the table to look at Uncle Tom and say, bad boy, and look at me and say, oh, you're so wonderful that you survived this. Well, that doesn't happen in families. Even when the family knows that you've been abused, they're not going to spoil their event for your sake, and they're not going to not include Uncle Tom. Rarely do they say, Tom, you can't be here anymore because you're a bad guy.
And obviously I've had exactly
similar
this
conversations
situation in therapy also, and the individual who has been victimized feels re-victimized.
Exactly.
Because
and they are.
Everybody doesn't break down and cater to their sense of victimization and do something about it. And then everybody else is like, hey, we don't want to have this kind of negative emotional experience. What's the resolution?
Well, the resolution is an individual one, not a familial one. You, as the wounded person, have to find a way to heal yourself and protect yourself. So one way to do that is to say, I'm not going to Thanksgiving dinner this year. I'm not going to Christmas or the family reunion. And then you're going to get guilt messages from the rest of the extended family. They're going to call and say, Aunt Edith is 92 years old, and this is probably going to be her last Thanksgiving, and she's not going to understand why you're not there. And you need to come for her sake. And so you feel the guilt pressure of that. Those guilt messages are really powerful and really manipulative, and people use them like they were handing out M&Ms.
But if the individual is going to give themselves permission to resist that guilt message and not go, then they have to do something that is healing and restorative for them. They can't just sit and ruminate and say, oh, well, I don't get to go because I'm a victim.
Well, you and I both worked with a psychologist in St. Louis area named Dr. Linnell Sutherland, and we had these conversations with her. And one of the things that I remember that she recommended was build your own traditions, especially like if you've recently gone through a divorce or your partner has died, and it's that first year around of calendar events is really significant and important to the healing process. And you have to work on figuring out what you're going to do that's going to be your ritual and celebration and good feeling event away from the family of origin where you were damaged.
Right. And I think that is such a liberating and empowering
Oh,
idea.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To build your own tradition. So then what I'm trying to project myself out into, okay, if I'm having this conversation with a client, then what I am thinking I'm going to get in return is, okay, so but then how do I do that? What does my tradition look like if it's just me, or what, other people don't want to do the things that I want to do? What am I supposed to do?
Wow. That's one of the things that, I mean, that's not a direct answer to your question, but one of the things that my wife Phyllis and I do and have done for years is we find individuals that we know who are alone and who are different. They're from other countries or from other religions or other domains of whatever sort, and we invite them into our home for the holiday experiences because we want to share that with them and have a good time with them, and we're concerned about their aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're asking me about is if you are the alone person, if you're the person that is isolated or damaged,
Yeah.
how do you begin to move forward? I would suggest to a friend or a client that they need to do something proactive. They need to find something to do that involves serving other people.
Mm-hmm.
Go to a food center and fix a meal or hand out a meal, serve a meal. Go do something with other people, for other people. like volunteer to drive somebody to church or drive somebody to midnight mass or to some activity event. To Tillis Park here in St. Louis has a seasonal light display. Take somebody through that can't get there. Some old person that lives near you. Do something for someone else. Get outside of your focus on yourself. Don't just be myopically focused on your own misery and your own loss. Take a step forward and reach out.
And what I would tell somebody is, a tradition always has to have a first time. Mm-hmm. So just because you are doing this thing this way, this time, doesn't mean that that's even going to be your new tradition. If it is your new tradition, It's still going to be the first time. So you go out and you do something and you see how that feels. And if that feels emotionally, if you go down to, a food pantry and you work in a food pantry and you are serving other people and you feel great, that can be a tradition.
I was talking to a friend earlier this week about generosity, giving things to people. And we were having a conversation about panhandlers and teaching our children about how to understand that. Somebody approaches me and my child's with me and they're obviously destitute. They're not dressed well. They're unkempt. They have a backpack or a grocery cart full of crap. And they say, I'm homeless and I'm hungry. I'm a veteran. Give me $5, give me $10. And I almost always say no. Mm-hmm. And my son looks at me and says, Dad, I thought you were a caring person. I thought you were a professional helper. I thought you were supposed to. And I have tried to teach him, most of the time in my experience, that's a scam. That's a manipulation trying to pull at your heartstrings. It is important to be generous. It is important to share and to give to others, mainly as a selfish behavior. It makes me feel good about myself to do that. But I want to do it in a way that I'm not going to regret because I got scammed. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do in our family is find an opportunity to help in a mass way. We support a food pantry at our church. We donate money to that. We take food to that. And then our church makes the decision individually about do we give food to this family? Do we give a Thanksgiving sack full of all the groceries for Thanksgiving dinner to these people or these people? And people know to come there. There are feeder organizations that say, if you're hungry, you just lost your job and you can't feed your kids, go to this church and they will give you something. But my friend was telling me that he had the same issues with his children. And what he does is he and his wife go to some store just before the Christmas holidays and they buy a dozen coats and a dozen blankets. Mm-hmm. And then they go down to a homeless shelter and they take their kids with them and they pass them out. They hand them out to people and they have conversations with them. Mm-hmm. And then the kids have the experience of listening to these people say, I served in the military, my wife died, whatever the circumstances are that have brought me to this place. I'm an alcoholic. I can't defeat the addiction, and so I get better, and then I get worse, but now I'm here. And they have an opportunity to participate in something that makes them feel better about themselves.
And I think that what that then does for the children is becomes then a preventative from that whole victimization kind of mentality, because they have had these experiences,
Yeah.
and then they actually now have had their their impressions of what's really important in the world now recalibrated. And I think that that has a very powerful impact, not just on that one holiday, but also for all those holidays that are going to come, and really helps when you think about, now we got to sit down and we got to have this, Thanksgiving meal. I'm not going to dread that. There may be people there that I don't like or that I don't get along with. But you know what? That's okay, because I know what's really important. And whether or not we're at this Thanksgiving meal and Uncle Frank drinks too much and says some things that I don't
Right.
like, that's not a big deal. I know how to cope with that.
Well, and I think it's a central responsibility of parenting is good modeling. And so I think this family that I was talking to models for their children the values that they want to live by. And we all have values that we want to live by, and we may not be able to because we're weak and we're tempted and we are unguarded at different times, and so we act out. But I think we want to try to model the values that we believe in, and I think that's a really good one to share with your children.
So we're going to try and limit these to somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes, because we are respectful that other individuals who are listening to these podcasts may not want to listen to 30 or 45 minutes of us talking about psychology. But if you do like the show, please go to psychwithmike.com, send us a message, let us know if you have any questions that you would like us to talk about. You can reach us there. As always, the theme music is composed, arranged, and produced by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. I thank him for his commitment to the show, and we will be back next week with another Psych with Mike.
Thank you.